I honestly do love short films. They are not for everyone, and you won't necessarily get the type of ROI that you might get on a feature film or some other type of media, the financial ROI, I should say. But I think that there is a tremendous ROI you can receive depending on your goals. And I'm always like, what is the intention behind this? We did it.
Woo, woo.
We're here. We are here with a whole podcast. A whole podcast. Not half a podcast. A whole podcast.
That's right. 100.
Welcome to the Creative Cut Up Podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. I'm Felicia Pride, a writer, director, producer, head honey and honey child, and head storyteller of the Create Daily, a platform I founded in 2012 to help storytellers, especially those of us who are historically excluded, thrive creatively and professionally. And I'm here with my co-host because we got some cutting up to do.
That part.
We sure do. I'm Dria Rowland, the creative executive at Honey Child and a writer and producer.
Yes, she is.
And I'm Georgette Pierre, a voice actor and producer. You can hear it, right?
Oh, we hear that voice, honey.
Oh,
we
yeah.
hear the voice. So join us weekly where we talk shop and smack and share the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Listen.
And from 3 different perspectives, which I love, providing tangible tips to support your creative practice, your career, and your artist self. Because we all know that being an artist is hard as hell.
Oof. Say that.
But the Creative Cut Up is here to help. Shall we begin, ladies?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey. We're back with another edition of the Create Daily Podcast. How y'all feeling?
Good.
Awesome. Excited.
Yes. Happy to be here.
And in addition to this podcast that we do together and the work that we do together on the Create Daily, we also work together on Honey Child, which is our production company. It is a independent media and production company dedicated to centering Black women 40 and over in front of and behind the scenes. And recently, we have a short film that we did 4 years ago called Tender. It was my first.
Wow, 4 years ago.
Isn't that wild? 2019.
Yeah.
I was turning 39, turning 40, one of those. I was up there. And it was my first experience directing. And it was a beautiful experience. And that film went on to do amazing things, which we'll get into more later. But we recently put it on YouTube because we had only had it on Vimeo for these last 4 years. And we recently put it on YouTube because we launched a Honey Child YouTube channel. And of course, for those of you who don't know, my mantra is something is new if you ain't heard about it, right? So I'm all about keep sharing, keep promoting for however long it is. We put it on YouTube and within like a week, it gets 3,000 views, which for me, that's a lot. Okay. Like I'm one of those who I take every view is important because it's hard to get people's attention. And that experience was like, whoa, wait a minute. People who haven't heard of this film are getting reintroduced to this film, getting introduced to this film. And it just showed the power of, first of all, making the work and sharing the work. And so that kind of got me, put a little pep in my step of like, okay, let's keep it going. Let's keep this going. Mm-hmm. So that kind of segues into what we're talking about today, which is making a short film and our experiences of working on Honey Child's Look Back at It and also Tender and the benefits of that.
So I discovered you because of Tender, and obviously an Emerson alum was like, Felicia Pride, she's great, she's this. And Tender was so tender. It was so tender.
That's the biggest compliment, honey. Like the premise that people expected, we hit that. So I love that.
It was so tender. And so from me entering the TV production standpoint, playing around with digital content, I know some people look at short films as calling cards. What was it for you to lean into making a short film? Like this was the story you wanted to tell, but even the craft itself of starting with a short film.
Yeah. I honestly do love short films. They are not for everyone. And you won't necessarily get the type of ROI that you might get on a feature film or some other type of media, the financial ROI, I should say. But I think that there is a tremendous ROI you can receive depending on your goals. And I'm always like, what is the intention behind this? So for me, for Tender, you know, I learned from my first feature film that features are a director's medium. TV is definitely a writer's medium. Features are a director's medium. And if I wanted to be a part of the process from start to finish, I either had to produce or I had to direct, because writing would not be enough to sort of have me remain a part of the process. I didn't know anything about directing. So I was telling myself that I was not a director. I could not see like a director. You know how we tell ourselves no before the world does. So I was doing a lot of that until I said, well, but you will have stories that you want to be part of from start to finish. So why don't you see if this is directing is something that is for you? So I took a bunch of classes and I focused on classes around working with actors because I felt like that was the only department that didn't have a department head, right? So, you know, you have a department head for production design, costume, lights, camera, not the actors. So I was like, okay, this is a place where I can start. And I realized how much I loved working with actors. I loved directing in that capacity. And so Tender came about because I didn't want to do too much out the gate. So the characters in Tender, and you can watch Tender at tendermovie.com, but the characters in Tender are from a pilot actually, that I wrote several years ago. And I felt like they were two characters who I could derive a story that could do a few things. One, be simple. Two, really showcase the themes I want folks to know I explore in my work. And then three, like you said, to be a calling card in terms of aesthetics.
First thing you said was be simple. Why was be simple important?
Because I didn't want to do too much as a first-time director. So simple in terms of 2 actors, 1 location, 1 day. I wanted the story to be simple. I wanted the story to be contained, but still be impactful. So that when I went into crafting the script, that's what I was thinking about, was how can I make this contained and producible? Because also we had no money. So simple and producible was the other aspect of, you know, how Tender came together as a script. Was we wanted something that we'd be able to actually produce for a lower budget for sure. So for me, Tender absolutely became a calling card because one, I hadn't directed before, right? So now I had something to point to as a director, like I directed this short. Here's this short film that I directed. It also served as a calling card, again, in terms of the types of themes that I want to explore in my work, which include love. And I always say that I write about Black love very expansively, love of self, love of family, friendship, romantic, love of art, love of community. And then Black woman and sisterhood, class. Tender touches on class in a way, and sort of our expectations around the American dream, which is something that pretty much all my work also delves into. So it had all those themes there. So it was a really great calling card in that way.
Can you lean into why proof of concepts essentially work to be able to be this calling card, and how has it worked for you with you doing look back at it? Because now you're building something bigger with that as well.
Yeah, I think about some short films that are proof of concepts for features, right? Or that have become proof of concepts for features. And a lot of times I think it's to accomplish a couple of things. One, tone. Right. So if you think about Whiplash, they did a proof of concept as a short film. And I think that was a lot to show the tone, because it's like, how can you show what this jazz thriller is going to be? Right. Like we need to see what this is going to be. Honk for Jesus, which is a movie that I think was fantastic. Also tone. What is the tone you're trying to go for with this mockumentary satire? I also think about Thunder Road, which was a short that became a feature. But in terms of the tone, I think that's one reason why you want to do a proof of concept. So for Look Back at It, which was our second short that we did, for me, it was one, Tender was tender, as you said, but Look Back at It is funny. So I wanted to show that I could handle comedy. I also wanted to have skin in the game for Honey Child, right? So Honey Child financed and produced this short film. So wanting to have skin in the game for the longer feature. And then also wanted to direct again and show that I am the only person who can direct this feature, right? So those are 3 things that I always tell people when you're thinking about proof of concept. Those are usually like prove that the concept works, to prove tone, and to have skin in the game.
I would love to expand on that a little bit. I love what you said about having a calling card. Do you recommend that writers make short films, right? You can have a drawer full of scripts or, producers can have great ideas, but people, especially in this business, I feel like they need to see what you're talking about. So do you recommend that people make short films, or is it one of those things that's not for everybody?
I recommend writers direct. It's so interesting to me, this assumption that writers don't have a vision for the thing that they have to write on the page that people actually can see. You know what I mean? Like, right. You have to have a vision to write a screenplay. You have to have a vision for the movie. Right. And a lot of times writers have visions, and sometimes that's not the vision the director has. And that can be a painful realization, right? Two, I think that this industry loves writer directors. So I think that it's a lane that if you are interested in directing, I'm not saying direct for directing's sakes, but if it's something you're interested in and you start to put in the work to see what that means and develop those skills, being a writer director is very attractive to this business. So I do encourage writers to direct if that's something that they have thought about. But I encourage us to make our work for sure. If we think about some of our sort of bigger, especially like Black folks, most of them started out because they made stuff. Issa Rae, Ava DuVernay, Will Packer, like they made something, connected with the audience. Hollywood came to them, or they were able to have more leverage to go into Hollywood. So I definitely recommend making as part of the way that you are getting into Hollywood or leveraging your relationship in Hollywood.
I don't know if you got into this already, but just kind of some real quick misperceptions and benefits of going the short film route versus something else.
I think that a lot of times people are very too hung up on, when they make a short film, on certain film festivals and getting in and not getting into those film festivals. And then like, if they don't get into those film festivals, wanting to throw the whole film away. Like they had a great experience making it. And then it's like, I didn't get into South by, fuck this whole film. And it's like, what? What? But that's part of the business, right? The business makes us feel like we're not worthy if we don't get into these festivals. And as someone who used to work in distribution, film festivals are just one part of the mix, right? Now, for short films, they can be an important part of the mix, but they're just one part of the mix. So I think what's important going into making a short film is, what is your intention with it? Really sitting down and thinking about, what do you want out of this? And being honest with yourself. If you're making this short film to get in Sundance, that's fine. But when you don't get in Sundance, don't be mad. You know what I mean? Like, temper your expectations. For Tender, the goal was to, one, make something and direct something, right? And then two, we wanted as many people to see it as possible. So for us, if our goal is for as many people to see it as possible, the film festival route is not going to guarantee that, right? Not many people go to film festivals as compared to the amount of people that are in the world, right? So when we had the decision to release it online in 2020, we went with releasing online and sacrificing our film festival run, because our goal was for as many people to see it as possible. And your goals is what dictates your strategies, right? So I think being very clear on why you're making this is really, really, really important, because that'll help temper your expectations. I think also, the financials of short films can be challenging. So I think it's being really smart about how you get the money or use the money. I don't necessarily recommend using your own money, at least for your first short, like crowdfund. And I know crowdfund is difficult, but like, I see a lot of people spending a lot of money on short films, again, not having any clear goals for it, and then expecting their money back. It's hard to make your money back on a short film. And that's why I think crowdfunding is a great way to finance short films, because you do not have to pay that money back, and people aren't expecting their money back. They want you to make the film, right? So I think being very clear about that short films, you ain't gonna make your money back. I think that is at least not in the way you think you are, right? You might make your money back because this short film led to a big directing gig, or this short film, got you in front of X, Y, and Z. So you may not make your money back in the way that you feel like you're supposed to. So I think it's being clear about that as well. But for me, another huge benefit that I don't think we talk about enough is just being able to make something unfiltered. Being able to make something without gatekeepers, without people who are like, I don't get it, without people who are like, really trying to change the intention behind the work. And I think that's a huge benefit, at least been for me, to keep me going in Hollywood. Like, to be able to point to something I have made that I did not have to be noted to death has been a way to keep me going, So that's a huge, huge benefit. And being able to choose people you work with in that way as well, like choose your collaborators and really create a different type of feeling and vibe in the creative process has been amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited because there's a couple of short films, one with a couple of collaborators, and then one idea that's been sitting in me, a silent short film that's been sitting on me, within me. I know.
What you waiting for?
I have no clue. Like, I've never really thought to dive in. And the more I'm working with people that are also like a you and a Dria and other people that are writers, the more and more it's like, oh yeah, let's get to this work, Georgette. So this year,
it's time.
Yeah, for
it's
sure,
time.
Absolutely. Feels good. Yeah.
I mean, Dria, you were on set of Look Back at It. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that set was like and what that experience was like? Acting on your ideas is a form of self-love. And when I decided to write the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal, it was with you in mind. Storytellers with stories inside of you that you need to get out into the world. But life, fear, uncertainty has a way of leaving us stuck. But no more. It's time to reclaim our creative practice and get unstuck. The Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal can help you get back on creative track. 30 days of dynamic prompts, exercises to stimulate creativity, alongside motivational quotes, journal pages, and more. If you're ready to create again, get your copy of the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal today at creativecomeback.com. That's creativecomeback.com. Because it's never too late to become the artist you always wanted to be.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I'm creative executive at Honey Child. I wanted to figure out how to be involved with Look Back at It in any way I could. So I actually got to go to Baltimore. I was a PA on the film. And that's something that I recommend for people who want to see what the business is like or want to see how to get in where you fit in. Working on a short film, you get to see everything come together and see what it takes. So that's just a really great learning experience, period. But the set was so great. We were in Baltimore. We shot it basically in Felicia Auntie house. It was a family production. We all got along. Like, it was a really harmonious set, which is a lot of times sets can be kind of like, you can feel the pressure or it can be kind of stressful. But this set was just a fun set to work on. And the talent that we had, the actors, they were just amazing. They kept us laughing between takes and everybody just kind of got along, and we went to dinner together and got to know each other. And that doesn't always happen. So I had a lovely time working on set in Baltimore. It was hot. It was hot as possible, but that's the only thing.
That humidity hits different, honey, especially after you live in LA for a minute. You're like, why is it so hot?
I'm sweating.
I think that speaks to, kind of what I was mentioning earlier, but just being able to craft your own vibe on set, I think is huge. And being able to choose people you want to work with and make it an experience that feels good. Like, the making feels good. We also went to the club afterwards and partied, shut the club down, which was
Shut it down.
Very Baltimore club too, and just had a fantastic time. And that to me is like, oh, this is why we all have these gifts. And, our star of our movie, Angel Lakita Moore, talks a lot about how she's usually the funny friend, right? So being able to take on the role where she's front and center and absolutely kill the role and was so fantastic, you realize how all of this reverberates, right? When we make stuff, it reverberates. So that's also a benefit that I don't think we talk about a lot, because I think often we need a certain kind of tangible benefit. It needs to be an award, needs to be a certain film festival, needs to be our money back, where we don't really count the valuable intangibles that happen and how the domino effect that it can have.
Even Hadia, she didn't see herself as an actor. And you were like, convinced her to be in it, and she was awesome, right? Every time you watch the film, people laugh every time she says anything, right? She wouldn't have taken that chance if you hadn't created that opportunity. So it's those sorts of things when you talk about the reverberating, like you're giving people opportunity to see themselves in ways they haven't been seen or ways they haven't even seen themselves, and, you know, getting that experience. So I really
love
wonderful.
that, because Hadia Robinson is my good friend. She's a hilarious stand-up comedian. She's a TV writer and an actress, you know what I mean? And to be able to work with her, but also that's my friend, but we also were like, you talent, honey. You get the ride to the airport. You get all the things that talent gets. Right. You talent. So that was also like special. And then to have my mom on set, you know, we're at her bestie's house. That's my aunt's house. And my mom is just standing right behind me, watching me direct. You can't, that's invaluable. That's priceless. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is priceless. So it's those type of experiences that I have come out of making these short films, for sure.
I want to expand on that a little bit before we go. You're talking about like the unexpected benefits of it. What are some of the opportunities that came about because you took this chance and made Tender and look back at it?
Someone just hit me up, a producer who I really admire her work, hit me up recently about directing a feature, which is amazing. I also was offered another opportunity to direct a feature that I wasn't able to take, unfortunately, but I directed a music video. I directed a concert film since then because of these two calling cards and stepping into fear, right? That I said I wouldn't be able to be a director. Stepping into that fear and actually doing it has changed my life and really just continue to solidify the type of work that I want to make, the type of work experiences I want to have. And I also think that it's helped to make me a better writer, to be honest. You start to think about what actors need and what actors are going to be having questions about. You start to think about how to visually describe something on the page. Like it's all worked together. So yeah.
If there's anything that you would have done differently with your short films?
No. You know, there's little things where you're like, oh, we should have booked travel earlier, but like it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like the experiences were so good that I don't have anything like, oh, I wish, you know, you definitely learn things for sure. But nothing that feels like regret, nothing that feels like a mistake. It all was, and sometimes I'm annoyed when people say that, but I'm being very honest about the fact that we did what we were supposed to do. And I'm very proud of the work. I will say the thing that I do shoot for is making sure that I am proud of the work that was done in the moment it was done. Because you have to watch this film for a long time, for many, many times. And I want to make sure I'm not cringing at anything. I want to make sure that I am proud of the work that was done in the moment that it was done in. And I feel that about both of these films, that I'm proud of the work that all the artists and collaborators did on these films. And because of that, it's important that we continue to share the work, right? Because artists pour their hearts into it, pour their time and energy into it. So it is my responsibility to continue to share the work so people can see the heart that was put into it. So should we jump into how we create?
Let's do it.
How we create is our segment where we share all forms of inspiration that have stopped us in our tracks, made us laugh, had us shouting, or even reminded us to rest. So who's got
This is going to sound like a shameless plug, but it's literally because I'm working through it. I am working through the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal. It's funny.
Yes.
It's funny.
I mean, hold it up. I mean, if you want to hold it up.
In the vein of us talking about having a practice, I remember when I got it, I was like, oh yeah, day one. And then like falling off, right? And I remember I heard a voice this week say, just as you write in your gratitude journal, you need to write in the workbook, the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal. And I do that every day. I do the gratitude journal every day. So there's no reason why that I'm not working in the Creative Comeback Journal. And so I'm on fear, and I had to really kind of bust through the fear and the sources. And I was like, oh, these are a little deep, Georgette. Like these are some real things. And so that right now is where I'm at. That's what I'm pushing through.
I love that. And you can get your copy of the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal at creativecomeback.com. And of course, also on the Create Daily website. We'll make sure we link to it in the show notes.
Love that. For me, totally unrelated, but inspiration can come from anywhere. My Detroit Lions just won. They just beat Tampa Bay. We are one win away from the Super Bowl. Honey, if Detroit could get to the Super Bowl, anything can happen.
Speaking into existence, I always have a lot of music inspirations. I got my start writing about music almost 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, actually. I've been listening to a lot of Music Soul Child lately. He had a new album that came out last year. And I listened to an album of his that came out, I want to say in 2019, called Feel the Real, either 2019 or 2017. And then I listened to Soul Star, which was his third album. And I'm like, music has hits. He is consistent. And it just feels good. His music just feels really good to me. So I'm just inspired by artists who just keep making at a high level. And yeah, his new albums, I think it's called Heroes and Villains, and then Hit Boy produced it. I have played those albums out as I have turned in script after script in the last few months. So shout out to Music Soul Child.
Shout out to Music Soul Child. Who knew he had a new album out?
Oh, yes, honey. Get into it. But this has been a wonderful episode. And we're going to dive even more. There's so many things to talk about when we talk about short films. So I'm sure we'll have additional episodes diving into nitty gritty around the making of short films. But really, really excited. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Creative Cut Up Podcast, a lively and honest space for storytellers that sits at the intersection of craft, business, and independence. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you dig it, subscribe, rate, review, and please tell a friend. If you need help getting back into your creative practice, check out the Creative Comeback Workbook and Journal. You can also join our newsletter and our We Create Daily community, both of which provide even more resources and opportunities to thrive creatively at thecreatedaily.com. And lastly, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at The Create Daily. Creating is hard as hell, but community can make all the difference. Join We Create Daily, our community of storytellers of all kinds who, like you, are looking to advance their craft, careers, and creativity. Join our membership community today at thecreatedaily.com. That's thecreatedaily.com. And make your creative journey a little easier alongside like-minded storytellers just like you.